All right, Mike, we are live.
Hey, what's up, Nonconformist?
How we doing, everyone? How we doing? Happy Thursday to you. We hope you are doing well out there on the social media sites. We're happy to have you on today. We're happy to be here with you. It was an exciting day today here in the United States. It was exciting for us in the cryptocurrency industry. It was an exciting day for anyone that has been in the finance industry, but it's also been a historical day for this nation going forward. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Jerome Powell's latest speech as of today, Thursday, August 27th, 2020, and how the Federal Reserve has indicated to us all that they have decided to steal our wealth going forward. Mike, what do you think?
I think that's been their plan. I think now we all know through conversation here on the Nonconformist that inflation was coming, right? Because of all the massive printing, and so the Fed knew this, right? So I think they're trying to protect their tail by owning up to the inflation, right? They're trying to act like it's normal, like, hey, we're going to allow this inflation to happen. And by doing that, by them coming out and saying it, they're trying to posture and show that they have control of it all. They're controlling inflation. That's what they're trying to show, and it's so that the main streeters won't panic, and so the markets can continue on moving on up, while Wall Street keeps playing their game in the background, trying to pretty much steal wealth, and then keeping interest rates low, so that borrowing can continue to happen. Meanwhile, people like main streeters, people that work every day, small business owners, people that work their 9 to 5, blue collars, they're losing their wealth. Their dollars are being worth less. So I think it's interesting how they just played it off like it ain't shit, and it is.
Great. So, Mike, we were just talking about the last article here. I was taking it to the actual news, and what we've seen is that Jim Cramer has essentially said Powell's on the side of the bulls, right? And by that, he's talking
About the Cantillon Effect.
the Jerome Powell effect. Correct. Yeah, and it's exactly the inequality that we're seeing now. It's for me. I look at that, and it's a double-edged sword because I know that people back home are going to be watching Jim Cramer as they're watching their afternoon news, and they're going to think it's great for them because it's good for their 401ks and everything. But what they have no clue about is that what Jim Cramer is essentially saying is he's laughing, him and his buddies, because they know that Wall Street is going to get the liquidity that they want through inflation, and they're going to milk the U.S. economy even further and broaden that wealth gap, because the way that the banking system works in the United States is that there's a Cantillon effect, like we talk about. The Federal Reserve is the main bank. It's not. We've talked about this. It's not even it's not a part of the
Not a
government. It's
federal
named the
government
federal
entity.
bank. They create the money. What do they do first? They give it to their closest friends, being the people in U.S. Treasury, Jamie Dimon at J.P. Morgan,
The
uh,
biggest hedge
the
funds, the
biggest hedge
biggest,
funds, right? And
yeah,
then
the
from
biggest
there, we
Wall
try to
Street
tell people it
entities.
goes to the corporate executives and elitists, and then it stops there. We can see that from the charts that the money has not trickled down. And Jerome Powell has
Yeah,
just told us that
that's
they're going to
that's
keep the
what the
printing press
Cantillon
going.
effect is, right? The money goes to them.
Yeah. The best way to think about the Cantillon effect, for those out there that don't know what that is, the Cantillon effect works kind of like, think of a pyramid where you have one controlled entity at the top, being the Federal Reserve Bank, and there's a flow of that money. And since the Federal Reserve Bank is the first one that creates the money supply, it's the people at the top of the pyramid that get access to the money first as it trickles down through the economy and through the system. And what's happened over the last 10 years as a response from the last financial crisis that was caused by the bankers, that was caused by the Federal Reserve Bank, is that they've had 0% interest rates. They've gotten richer over the last 10 years as the rest of us have gotten poorer. And we know from the charts now that the top 0.01% of the US wealth owns the same share as the bottom 99%. How does that happen? That's where we are. It happens because of the Fed, and it happens
Yeah,
because of
zero
Jerome
percent,
Powell.
right? Imagine if you and I, imagine anybody right here was to go to a bank and get money at 0% interest. Think of it right now, Joe. You wanna, I don't know, you wanna do something, you wanna make a
I want a
couple
new
extra.
car. I want a new car.
You want a new car, or, yeah, or even that. Let's say you want to loan money out. You just want to loan money. It's like, yeah, I can make some quick bucks right here.
Yeah.
Let me go to the bank, and they come and they give it to you at 0% interest, and then you come, and then I go to you, right? You're like, hey, Mike, I have I know you probably need some money, right? I could loan you this amount of money at a certain percentage, and then and then you loan it to me, and you make money off of me. That's free money. You're making money for free, right? Somebody's giving you money at zero interest. You're loaning it out to somebody else at interest. You're getting the proceeds of that back, and then you have you could pay that loan back to the Federal Reserve maybe. And a lot of the times right now, they're not. The Federal Reserve is saying, hey, don't worry, we'll take that debt, the loans that you owe us. We'll just take that. You don't even have to pay us back. Just keep taking more. That's what they do. Imagine if the bank was telling you, Joe, you don't have to pay me back that money. I just let you borrow and you made profit off of. You don't have just take more of it.
That's what
That's what the hell's going
that's what
on.
I try to tell people too. Is that like if we had access to the same interest rates as they did and the same cost of borrowing as they did, maybe I'd be okay with it. But we don't. It's interest rate apartheid. That is what Kaiser Report has dubbed it. It's financial terrorism. You want to know where the terrorists are? You want to know where you should be storming? The steps of the Federal Reserve Bank to change the banking system, not for what they want it to be, because right now they're trying to funnel us into this digital cash, central bank digital currency, crypto, and Jerome Powell's telling us that we're actually, you know what? The Fed just looked at monetary policy in the past. We just did a review, and we decide going forward that things are going to be a little bit different, and we're going to keep up inflation because if we don't keep up inflation, there could be too little inflation, right? I'm sorry, if we don't keep up inflation, there could be too little deflation, and that would be a bad thing. That would be a bad thing. What people just need to know is that there are a group of people in this world. They're the banking executives. They're most of the business, the high, big company business executives, and the IMF, the Treasury Department, Trump, Pelosi, Democrats, Republican. They're all a part of this club because there's a revolving door in D.C., and they're the ones that have access to this money. If you look at the chart, we'll pull it up in the future, the wealth gap chart again. They're a part of the 0.01% of people in this world that have access to free money. Meanwhile, I have to pay 20% on my credit card. I have to pay, 4%, 3% on my mortgage. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos and Apple are getting interest-free loans, and they get that money by the Fed buying their bonds. And Apple is still, what they're doing right now, Apple, is they're buying back shares on the stock market like they've been doing, except now they're buying it back with bonds that they got from the Fed that was that 0% inflation money, free money, to go and buy their shares back now. And what does that do to the share price? It boosts it up because it's mathematics. When you're removing
Yep.
shares outstanding, your prices move up. And the business executives are going to continue to milk the system like they have by, once they get those higher share prices, their stock bonuses go up. Their
Oh,
pay
hell
goes
yeah.
up. Meanwhile, all their employees are left out on the street with a fucking pink slip from COVID-19.
Exactly.
That's where we're at, people. That's where we're
That's
at
where
right
we're
now.
at. Yep, and then they leave. Then it gets left to it's the left or it's the right. No, it's everybody. It's everyone within that system up there. That's what's going on. That's why we have massive protests around the country right now. It's not only because of police brutality and all that. It's because there's a robbery of our wealth. That's happening. The only ones that are actually benefiting, look, Jeff Bezos right now, he's worth at least 200 million. I mean, 200 billion. 200 billion. The first person on record that we know on record in modern times to pass that is Jeff Bezos. And yeah, great. He's an entrepreneur that went and did his thing, and I don't knock anybody for doing that. But, at the end of the day, when you are part of this, it's a type of, we talk a lot about Russians and they have oligopolies and all of that shit, right? It's like cartels. These are cartels we have running shit. The money goes to them. Whatever they're involved in, those systems also profit. It stays on that top echelon. It's a small circle, and they're eating. They're the ones. George Carlin, great comedian, he says it. It's a game, and they're the ones that are rocking the game. We are over here on the sidelines, like picking up the crumbs, and that's what's going on here.
Mike, we've talked in the past about psyops. You and I were in the military. I ran in my mission overseas. We ran a psyop the entire time. We were trying to sway the villagers' minds to support the Afghani government instead of the Taliban. We controlled the radio. We controlled the communication. And I try to get it to people now that what's happening in this country is a result of the financial terrorism we've seen from the Federal Reserve Bank to funnel money to the rich and not care about the poor or the rest of us, the bottom 99%. I don't care if you have $500,000 in the bank, you're still a part of us. But at the same time, they're all on the same team. And you're watching the media that is swaying your emotions on purpose because they're controlled by the multinational corporations, by the U.S. government, where you're fighting each other. But who's the real enemy here? This is something I try to get across to everyone all the time. And I say to them, we have such a passion in economics, finance, and the currencies is because the economy runs society. All societies are formed around economies. Whatever that economy might be, there's always an economy. And when your economy and the currency, when you've had the corruption like we've had, when you've had the scandal, I mean, no one went to prison after the housing crisis in '07 that was caused from fraudulent banks here.
The only one that went to prison was Bernie Madoff, and it's because he ripped off billionaires.
If you pull a kid out of his car down the street and he's got a dime bag, thank God now in the United States it's not as bad, but you pull him out and he had some weed on him, he gets locked up for a couple of years. If you're a banker and you're making fraudulent loans, or you're like Wells Fargo, who, by the way, Warren Buffett was invested in, if you're like Wells Fargo and you're creating accounts without people knowing and charging them more and stealing from them, and you're doing what HSBC does, which they've been proven guilty for laundering money for the Sinaloan
Deutsche
cartel.
Bank, exactly, okay. The Russian mafia.
How the freak aren't these people? How do we not hold them accountable as society? How do we not hold them accountable? That's just what I wonder.
And we do not hold them accountable because the ones that could hold them accountable are and paid for by them. You have district attorneys, you have all of these politicians and law enforcement agencies. They are all fucking funded by them. People got to understand they're funded by them. Stop sucking the teat off of the left and the right political parties, because at the end of the day, those parties are just to suppress us and to lift that one group. They're holding them up, making sure that they eat the best fruit on top of the tree while we get the low-hanging rotten fruit. That's what they're there for. That's what's going on. That's why when you see the economy is shut down and they say, hey, we have to close stores and all that, mom and pop shops get closed down. Ones that sell diapers and they sell milk and all of that, they get shut down. Meanwhile, Walmart operates at maximum capacity. So does Costco, so does Amazon, and they keep going up while everybody keeps going down. And it continues and it continues, and they keep finding ways to, to generate wealth, right? Right now, you see Warren Buffett's buying gold, right? He hasn't lost a dime in this whole time, right? He's buying gold. How is he able to buy gold? Because he's been benefiting off of that system that's feeding this free money into his companies and into his pockets, so then he could go and use that fake money, which is the dollar, that fiat currency, that monopoly BS, use that to buy gold and then hold wealth.
That rat poison. I don't know if it's weather or maybe the technocrats are just trying to censor us. That just reminds me, that's why you need to make sure you subscribe to our free email list so you can get notified when we have updates in the event that we're censored further by the technocrats. Or you can go to the nonconformist.io/subscribe to get our financial newsletter, which you'll benefit from. Mike, our subscribers have made hundreds of percents of return so far. I've got friends that have been talking to me saying, hey, man, I'm glad I bought gold back then. Hey, man, glad I bought silver back then. Hey, man, I'm really glad I bought Bitcoin back then at 4,000 and now it's at 12,000. So
Check out Monero.
Monero.
Now.
Oh, I know. You're right, Mike. Monero's our second love here at the Nonconformist. Monero has also done well. You would have been buying it at $30 and now it's at $90. So, you know.
That's a big jump.
It's a big jump. It's a big jump. But yeah, so I think before we get shut off again, Mike, so just a quick overview for people again. What did Jerome Powell say today? What do you need to know? Essentially what he said is that the United States, or the Federal Reserve Bank, and I saw we had one person jump on real quick. I was just saying, what do you need to know from what Jerome Powell said today during the speech? You need to know that Jerome Powell is the head of the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a government entity. It's a private bank that lends money to the U.S. government. We are in debt to the Fed. What he has said to us, they're the ones that create the money supply. Okay, that's why we know that.
And he's a spokesperson. So. And
he's a spokesperson.
He's not a share owner.
Not a shareholder. We don't even know who the shareholders are. Well, we
It's
do.
Secret.
We do, but we don't really.
Yeah,
know.
We have assumptions.
Yeah, but what he said is that we have looked at the way that we've managed the economy in the past up to now, and we have decided that in order to keep things functioning going forward, we're going to change it completely to how it's been in the past. And how are we going to do that? We're telling people that we're going to create more inflation to make sure that there's not less inflation. And what does inflation mean? Inflation means that they create more money. That actually happens. That hasn't always been like that. Up until 1971, the government could not do that. The Fed could not do that because the dollar was backed by gold, and you cannot print more gold than you have. But ever since, we've been living off this physical paper dollar that's backed by the good faith and credit and military might of the U.S. government. And here we are now in the worst depression since the Great Depression, and competing government powers, and we've got the Fed saying we're going to create more money than we ever have going forward. And that means that your dollars, when you save in dollars now, when you look at your bank accounts and you see dollars, when you hold cash in your pocket and you have dollars, you need to know that today Jerome Powell has made it clear that they are going to create more money than they ever have historically, which means that money that you have now in your bank account, in your wallet, on your 401k that you see, when you see your stock prices in dollars, it's going to be worth a lot less year over year over year. If you will hold $100 in a savings account today, 1 year from now, after they add another $10 trillion to the U.S. economy, your $100 is going to be the equivalent of like $50 today. And it's going to happen the following year. And it's going to happen the following year. And it's going to happen the following year.
And they're saying it.
And they're saying
not covering
they're
it up.
telling us
they're
this.
Owning up to it and making it seem that they're controlling it. And then you have to also take into account that we do not produce here. We have services, yes, but we do not produce goods. Meaning that our dollars will buy less. So if that, phone, that iPhone that you love and you buy every year, that, it keeps going up, right, in price, it's not because the technology in the phone is so advanced that, it costs more. No, it's because of inflation. Because, it's easier for them to produce more technology, but it's harder to keep the prices down of the hardware, the metals. All of these metals and all of the, the lithium and everything in a phone, that comes from abroad, all right, and it's produced abroad. So now our dollars will cost less and it will buy less. So people need to understand, not only is your dollar is losing value here, it will cost you way more to buy whatever it is down the line, and that's the near future. All right. So you guys, that's why we talk about gold, we talk about silver, we talk about crypto, Bitcoin. Monero, look into those things because as the dollar keeps going down in value, things will keep going up in price. And on top of that, throw in an economic depression, meaning that you're probably not making the same amount of money you were before.
No.
You're probably struggling with debt. There's a bunch of shit in there, right? There's a bunch of stuff going on. Now add on that your dollar's worth less and you can't buy what you could before. That is not good at all.
Yeah, you
So,
save, you think that you're getting ahead, but what's going on right now is you're not. And please know this. This is wealth confiscation. This is taxation without representation. The founding fathers, and Benjamin Franklin was one, I believe, called inflation the hidden enemy. He said one man in a million, it was him or it was Keynes or one of them that said one man in a million understands inflation. And it's a hidden enemy. Your government, your banking system is stealing from you, from me, from Mike, every year through the form of inflation. They create more money, which makes our money worth less, and they have the first access to the money that they make, so they benefit from it, while the rest of us who think we're doing the right thing in life, you worked your ass off for 40 years, you saved like you were supposed to for retirement, and by the time you retire, the joke's on you. Because the way the system's set up, you thought that 2 million was going to be enough for you to survive, but you didn't factor in that you had been stolen from. Your money was worth less now then. And you look at your savings, being duped. And that's what happens, dude. And that's why we bring up exactly like we started the Nonconformist. We started this financial newsletter to help people preserve and grow their wealth while we're going through what we're going through. And Mike and I started this last September, but we've been documenting from a year before that because we started to see signs then. Everyone in the industry was. For me, where I was working from a financial perspective, Fortune 20 company, we were trying to figure out how to get cash back on shore as quick as we could so we could buy as much stock back as we could, right? We saw the signs. So Mike and I last year said, we need to share this with people because this is going to hurt people. And what has happened this spring, you know? So, but that's why we're here. That's why we're trying to do what we're doing. But Mike, how can they preserve their wealth? Because the Fed is going to continue to steal, and they're going to steal even more. We talk about the cryptos. You know, we talk about precious metals, but people need to know is that there's a shortage right now of precious metals. It can be very hard to find physical forms of it. We talked about the gold mining company stocks and the silver mining company stocks. You should, if you're going to be in the stock market, look into those because there's going to be a lot of popularity on gold and silver miners to get more of this stuff above ground. But we talk about Mike here at the Nonconformist.
And you gotta be careful with those too, right?
You do.
So that's something we want to know. We want to tell you guys it's when you're trusting an entity to say, you know, mining companies and these stocks and all of these ETFs, you got to make sure that you understand that there's an invisible hand in play. So you don't have that same concept as holding the physical gold or silver. That's why silver's been doing so well because gold is becoming harder to get because it's becoming more scarce. So look into silver. Silver is the price for silver for what it's 20 something an ounce right now.
Just had a breakout. It just broke out of a pattern. I think it's $25 an ounce.
Yeah, so you know you could buy silver. You could buy a good amount of silver. You could buy a good amount of other metals too. That there's other metals that are pretty precious. Palladium being one of them. Platinum. Look into various ones. You know, have a mixed batch of them. Look into those shares, those gold and silver mining companies and ETFs and all of that. Also, I would, I think you have to look at your 401ks and say, hey, how can I take advantage of these COVID regulations that allow me to pull out money from 401k without being penalized and place that into these types of vehicles just for your own sake?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if your 401k crashes, you're screwed.
Or if the Fed keeps inflating like they said they are, that what Jim Cramer meant by that is that as long as the Fed keeps inflating the currency, they keep adding more supply, we're going to see stock prices go up. That's kind of what he was indicating by that.
Oh, that bubble will burst.
But they need to know is that your dollars are worth less. So it's a net negative. It doesn't even it's.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, let's go back to this year. We're in an election year. It doesn't benefit nobody to have an economic crash right in the middle of November. remember, traditionally, October's just been that month that we have these crashes come about, right? So, the last quarter, the beginning of the last quarter is always very sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want an economic crash to happen because we already have it chaotic as it is right now. And being an election year, doesn't matter if it's Biden or Trump, doesn't matter. It's still an election year, and we do not need more chaos. So they'll keep pumping in hot air to this bubble, and then if it pops next year, it pops next year. At least we got over that, hurdle of the elections, right? Now, if this happens right next year, this is where we need to really be worrisome, because that's when inflation become hyperinflation,
Mm-hmm.
or even crazier. There's a trend that we saw in many other countries. There could be massive deflation, and then there's an overcompensation. Then it becomes hyperinflation,
Mm-hmm.
which is even crazier, because you have to really look at in history how that has worked, because deflation and inflation are bad, and it sounds like an oxymoron, but you have to really understand the concepts of both, and how, because it's both manipulation.
Yeah, Mike, could I give my plug on that real quick? Because
Yeah,
I've
go ahead.
tried to understand this whole concept of inflation or deflation or stagflation, because this has been talked about a lot. Like, is it deflation or inflation? That's the question that's been going on, right? Like you're talking about, I think what people need to know out there, and we've talked about here, is that the U.S. economy, the world's economy right now, works off of a debt-based economy. There's two forms of money, quote unquote. There's physical cash, which is real money, the money supply, the count it as physical money supply, and then credit. Credit is considered the same thing as the money supply, because you can extend credit and then you can purchase something, like you give them money, but it's for an IOU. And through that extension of credit, you create debt. Now, so credit is looked at like money, but it's not money. It's not money. But it's still considered an extension of your purchasing power. So if you consider now the U.S. economy, right? Say our debt level, right? We have a lot of debt. We know that. Now, if that debt is considered a form of the actual currency, money supply, or money in that economy, when you default on that debt, it's the same as you remove money from that economy. That's a deflationary event that happens, right? Is the removal of credit, and through the form of defaults. If you can't pay back a loan, eventually there's an IOU that's on someone's doorstep, and if they can't pay it off, they go bankrupt, right? And that's where the Fed steps in, or they've been stepping in to try to save this dying economy for fucking 15 years. So as the credit will be destructed, in my opinion, as defaults will occur, as that destruction of money through the system happens, that, in my opinion, is the deflationary event. The problem, though, is what we haven't seen in history since maybe it was in the Volcker. No, because even with Volcker, he raised the interest rates in the 70s, right? The 70s.
Yeah,
and
the
80s.
70s and 80s, interest rates were crazy.
Yep.
Like, you wanted to buy a house, you were paying astronomical rates. But it had to happen because of, in 1971, we had an economic crash where we went pretty much bankrupt, you could say.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going to happen this time that hasn't happened then, though, is that the currency will be inflated. So while there's deflation happening in the credit markets, I think that there's inflation that happens in the physical currency, the actual dollars, because there's more dollars that are going to be needed to pay back down debt, right? Like that's what we believe happened last year with the oil, or at least the beginning of this year with the oil prices. When oil went below $1 a barrel, or went negative, what they were essentially saying in the oil market is that, because people were like, what's a negative oil rate? Oh, is that good? No, it just means there was a storage issue. It was so cheap. It got so cheap that it went negative. So you would have to go there to pick this thing up. Why did that happen? We saw through our indicators is that there was a shortage in dollars during that time frame, because that's when all of this started to kind of unfold. And the only way that oil companies can get dollars or pay down debt, U.S. denominated debt, is to have more dollars. How do they get more dollars? they have to sell more oil.
Oil, because it's a petrodollar.
Exactly. So
And they've overproduced oil for
exactly.
not only for that purpose you're saying, but also for, we have a currency war and we have a Cold War going on with China and Russia. So we've been playing this game where we overproduce oil and all of this crap, and then we got the frackers here in America just, pumping oil like crazy and propping up an industry on Wall Street where they could, make a quick buck. And that's why now you see all these fracking companies like Chesapeake and all of them collapsing, bankrupt, right? And all these storage, companies for oil making buku bucks because they oversupply the market with oil. So you need to pay people to take this oil away. And it's not you and I that are going to buy this oil, it's these other companies. So the only way to free up the space is to sell oil for negative, which is give away oil or pay people to take it away, because it's cheaper to pay people to take that oil off their hands than to store it. This is the way the system works, and people don't understand these things. You have to really follow the money, and you have to sit down and break these things down. This is, look, the way you understand how your utility works. You have to, when you're going to rent an apartment or buy a house, you understand that you have to pay property taxes, you have to get insurance. Same thing with a car. Oh, I get a license, now I go get a car. Do you have money for maintenance? Do you have money for gasoline? You have to understand that with everything, because this has all to do with our lives. All right, all of this. This is how they get away with things.
Yeah.
So if you don't understand this, they're gonna keep getting away with it because we have no power to fight back. Because nobody knows what to fight back if they don't know what's going on. So.
And that's what we provide to you. Again, you can go to the nonconformist.io. Mike and I are from this industry. I've worked in the financial service industry for quite a bit. We switched to crypto primarily 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, because of what we saw happening with the dollar. Our crypto calls have been pretty good. We put out, Mike, the oil tankers are a good point. Last fall, we were putting out calls on oil tanking stocks that ended up taking off because of the shortage. So the companies needed somewhere to store the oil, so they benefited. We've also got some short calls out going into Q4 on the stock market, some shorts going into the election season. That's only accessible through paying subscribers. So we do this so you don't have to. Our subscribers have done pretty well so far, actually very well, hundreds of percents of returns. And also, we're just starting the next crypto bull market. So there's a lot of money to be made. There's a wealth transfer that's happening in the background. We talked about right now today that the dollar is going to continue to be inflated away to no value like it is now. Jerome Powell made that very clear today during his presentation. And we talk about the cryptos, Mike. And the one exchange that we actually recommend the most, one of the easiest ones, is Kraken.com. So Kraken's actually one of the most trusted cryptocurrency exchanges in the world. If you are a U.S. customer, you do have access to Kraken. If you would like to actually open a Kraken account to start buying Bitcoin and Monero, like we talk about, you can find the link in our actual description of this video and also in our newsletter. So if you're a subscriber, you should have it in your newsletter. It's pretty easy, Al. When you're going to create an account, you just create an account here. You're going to be asked for some KYC information. And then from there, you should be all set up. You pretty much just verify yourself through a driver's license, you do KYC. If you are someone that wants to stay a little bit more private online, there are people that I've heard about using VPNs and such. But when you come on here, though, just be aware that the Bitcoin ticker is not BTC, it's XBT on this exchange. Now, that is just a US type of functionality here. XBT is also used on a lot of other exchanges, also within the futures markets. So when you're going to buy Bitcoin on Kraken, just look out for XBT. That's the only place. Normally it would be BTC. And then Monero is also on here. You could see right here at XMR. So great exchange, trusted exchange. That's what we recommend. There's a link in the comments. So definitely check that out. And again, I think Bitcoin, Monero, they're an escape from the current economy. They're an insurance policy for you right now. So if you're a retiree, if you're a young person, there's never been a better time to save in crypto, because what we're seeing happen right now in the economy is proof from the Fed that they're going to inflate the money supply. The stock market's the only thing doing well, so stocks are going to do bad. You can't make money in bonds. There's going to be no more physical gold left or silver. Bitcoin and Monero are going to be the only way that you are able to preserve wealth from here on out. And we talk about that, Mike.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, this was a good conversation. Any questions, leave them in the comment section. Make sure you check out the Nonconformist at .io. And also, we'll have the links below. Check out also our other page, adoption, and learn Monero as well. So we'll walk you through a little more in depth on these cryptocurrencies, how to buy, we'll break it down as simply as we can. All right, guys.
All right, y'all. Take care, man. We love y'all.
Take it easy.
Peace.
Peace.